Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to get started in the regular council meeting, if we may. Welcome, everyone. Okay, I would like to call this evening's meeting to order, please, with approval of the agenda as it is presented. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, adoption of the meeting minutes. We have our regular council meeting from February the 14th and the special council meeting from February 20th. Are there any corrections? Questions? Moved adoption by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried as well. And we have two delegations this evening. Each have a 5-minute time allowance allotted to each one. So I would like to begin by inviting forward Corporal Scott Hilderley regarding the Journey Middle School Youth Council. Welcome. And if you could please turn on your microphone. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. A number of months ago, back in the fall, I approached Journey Middle School and the Youth Council there about putting on a Youth Empowerment Summit, which I call Yes to No, Youth Empowerment Summit 2, and then KNOW. And everything that I do in my job builds developmental assets in kids. So I asked them what they needed, what they wanted to learn about beyond the walls of the school, beyond what the school provides in their normal curriculum. And they told me a variety of things, all of which, incidentally, build developmental assets. They wanted to know about resiliency, social belonging. They wanted to know about choices, happiness, healthy relationships, mental wellness, how the brain works, and how to balance stress in your life. So I set about finding speakers for all of those things, and I've done so. And this event will be taking place this Wednesday, and you're all invited. It's going to be an all-day event, and the event is kind of going to break down like this. There will be a keynote speaker to start speaking about resiliency, and then after that is done, the kids are going to be broken off into breakout sessions. There'll be 6 of those on the topics I just mentioned. And then over the lunch hour, there's going to be what I call a spark zone. In this zone, there's going to be a positive graffiti wall, an acts of kindness station, a gratitude wall, a self-esteem wall. I call it the pit of despair, where they set fire to their fears out back. It's legal. It's okay. There will be a yoga station, photo spark booth put on by the Sioux Fall Fair. ICBC will be there with their distracted driving obstacle course. The BU Promise, the Sioux Boxing Club, and Sea Park will be there. And today we kicked off a week-long acts of kindness competition between the neighborhoods in the school. So every student that commits an act of kindness gets to write out on a slip of paper what their act of kindness was and put their name on it, and then that kindness act becomes a link in a paper chain. So by the end of the week, the neighborhood with the most acts of kindness is getting some prizes from Sea Park. So it's going to be a week-long activity, and then the teachers are engaged too, and they're going to be carrying on some of these messages further on after the summit is over on Wednesday. And then we'll wrap up the day with another keynote speaker at the end of the day, all about the adolescent and developing brain and what they need to nurture it and what they can do to take good care of their brain. So this was all led by information provided by the Youth Council. And by my tally, out of the 40 developmental assets researched by the Search Institute, this builds 30 of them. And your average student in high school has only 18. So this is a great boost for them. It'll be a great day. It's going to be hugely empowering, being led by the council. Now, what brings me here is I never meant to be here, actually, to ask for any money. I had some funders lined up. One of the major funders was Coast Capital Savings, and they had agreed to fund pretty good chunk of this, and then not just for this particular summit, but they wanted to do them all up and down the island. So my colleagues in my unit and I are doing that. However, when they found out that this one was for a middle school, they decided that they only wanted to fund high schools, and they withdrew their funding. So therefore, I had to scramble and come with my hat in hand asking you.
Okay, a few questions. What time is the event on Wednesday?
Starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it goes all day until the final bell at 3.
9, okay. In the event, for myself, I received the invite, but just with other events that I have, so can council come and go at
Absolutely,
different
yeah.
times?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they only ask that you sign in when you come.
Okay, great. Questions from council? I have Councillor Ray, then Parkinson.
Actually, I'd just like to move the motion that council provide the Youth Empowerment Summit with the $500 as requested.
Seconded from Councillor Parkinson. And then, if I may just go back to Councillor Ray, who moved it. Was it your intent that this comes from contingency?
Yes, because we don't have our budget completed yet.
Okay.
Or
Go
could
to
come out
council.
of it could come out of the community grant fund, perhaps. A question to.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Parkinson, and then.
I was just going to a friendly amendment. When I looked at the application here, it should actually be $525 to cover the entire cost of what was owing. So I was wondering if we could add the extra 25 to it.
It's
make
okay.
It 525.
Oh, it's asking 500.
That's correct.
Okay.
Where's the? If I may, Your Worship, I'm sorry, I don't know where the missing $25 is coming from. Sorry.
Well, if you add up what they have and what they're taking, it's actually 525 and not the 500.
I think it's just, the confusion.
So I was just, so that it was all paid for, that's all. That's what my motion would have been.
Okay, is there a seconder for the amendment? Sure. Councillor Casper will second the amendment, so that'll be in the amount of 525. Okay, any discussion on the amended motion? Councillor Berger, I believe, then Pearson?
Yes, thank you. No, my question was just to, in reading this, it's a perfect fit for our community grant. So I'm just wondering if there's funds available in this coming budget that we can.
Well, we haven't started that process at all, so to our CAO, please.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. Your Worship, through to Councillor Berger, we do have some money left in council contingency, but if it is the wish of council to direct staff to go back to the Director of Finance to find out what is still left in the grant account, we can certainly do that.
Over to staff, to our corporate officer.
I'm sorry, Your Worship. Yes, this is a bit of a one-off. It wasn't planned that we'd have community grants ahead of time, but I understand because of the special hardship. But you certainly can move this as part of your community grants. That wouldn't be a problem, just with the full acknowledgement that this would be automatically included in your community grant allocation when you do budget discussions.
Okay, so what I'm looking for from council then is I'd like to know where you want this to come from, if you want it to form part of the future grant process for this year or from contingency. I think it's important to clarify that.
I would support it coming from the grant fund if it's perfect within what our grants are used for.
Okay.
And then, sorry, just can I have one quick question of Constable Hilderley. Is this program going to be done at EMCS as well, or just Journey in SUP?
For now, right at Journey to start. I mean, we'll see if there's an appetite for it. If the staff of EMCS asks for something like this, we can tailor something to them too. They do have students that are going to be helping. Their leadership kids are coming to help run the Spark Zone, so maybe it'll catch fire and maybe they'll want it.
Yeah, it sounds like a great program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great. Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, Mr. Hilderley. When we spend money, I like to know what happens with the money after. So I'll support the recommendation, but one of the things I'd like to do is have some feedback from you on how this program went. You know,
okay, I do have a survey.
After the fact.
Yeah, I've got a survey done already to give to the kids that they'll be doing the next day. If you guys would like the results of that survey, I'd be happy to provide that for you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That would also keep in line with our policy, so that would be great, and it would be good feedback for council as well. Okay, so any further discussion on the amended? I'll move the amendment first, please. Or the movement, pardon me. The amendment has been moved, so I'm going to call the question on the amendment, and that was to switch the motion to 525. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And now on the motion as it's amended, with the understanding that this is coming forward through the grant process. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And all of council, 9 to 3, if you can, please drop by the middle school and
Yeah, we'd love
see the
to have you
office.
there.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thanks.
much. Okay, our next delegation, please. We have Mr. Herb Haldane, and he's going to speak with us tonight on our amenity policy. Welcome.
Thank you. 3118C Otter Point Road. I made an application months ago for a subdivision for a rezone and stuff, and there's been some question about our amenity policy, the validity of it, and so I've done my homework here in the last little bit. I tried dealing with the Director of Development Services, and I couldn't get anywhere because he wouldn't listen to anything I had to say or take any of the information.
It's Mr. Haldane, if
Yeah. So at this point,
you
fair
can't
enough.
speak about the rezoning.
No, I'm not speaking about rezone. I'm just speaking about amenity. So I was trying to give him this information is my point.
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Yeah, so-
I think it's critical for people in this chamber to understand that you do not name staff or their titles with respect to complaints coming forward.
It's not
We are
even a
obligated
complaint,
under
it's-
WorkSafe BC to provide a safe and respectful work environment. So if I can implore Mr. Haldane not to do so, that would be thankful. I'd be thankful for that.
If you can tell us what you don't like about the policy.
It's not even what I don't like. Here, I'll explain it to you quicker then. So there's been an expectation of amenities, and I go through all of our agenda minutes and meetings, and I've sent many emails to this point. So then I finally, after looking through all this stuff here over the last week, I found a resolution by council. And this one here is a meeting from November 12, 2013. And this is a financial analysis on proposed community amenity contribution policies. And it explains recommendations in this part. But better than that, executive summary. Council adopted the following resolution at its May 13th meeting. Council adopted new base density of 65 units per hectare for the town centre, 50 units for comprehensive development zones. Further add the following amenities to section 3.2 of the community amenity contribution policy to provide a wider scope of possible amenity contributions to establish farmers markets, so on and so forth. And further, that section 3.3 of the community amenity contribution policy be amended by reducing amenity contributions to 1,000 per unit in the town centre and 2,000 outside the town centre. And further, that council directs staff to provide a detailed financial analysis on the effects of the proposed, and that's what this is all about. On the last page here, and it makes reference to community amenity contribution policy. Moved and seconded, adopt the new base densities, 50 units, so on, all to this. Further, 3.3, carried. Councillor Ray and Tait opposed the motion. This was back in May 13th, 2013. The point being, I've been trying to get this across that we've changed all the rules here, and we're still using to this very day the 2010 amenity policy, and it doesn't work. It hasn't worked for a long time, and we've had this for a long time, but somewhere along the way we haven't implemented any of it, and there's not even any real record. The only way I found this, the fact that we had adopted this, because it's a special council meeting for May 13th, was that I had to go through a bunch of records from other people that were applying back in the day, and this was on the attached to the Bella Vista application down by the arena or by the. So we don't even have it in our own records. So these should be public record, and it should be easily for me to access these, but it's not easy. And because I knew what I was looking for, and I went looking, believe me, when I went looking for it, and I find this stuff. But it comes to the point today where I have a job where I work as a consultant for other people to help them with their applications and so on, and I can't do that job if I can't have this stuff implemented, and then whatever I tell clients, they expect to be legit. They expect my information to be reliable. And it's not reliable if we don't have any of this stuff working for us. And these are resolutions by council in 2013. So the 2010 one didn't exist and shouldn't exist now. And I shouldn't be explaining it that it shouldn't exist. And I sent emails. So
That's a very fair point.
Yeah.
I think all of council does want to take a look at the amenity policy and have it refreshed to a more modern standard, considering it is dated and it referenced a different time. It's from 2010.
Well, I think if I'll give staff or somebody, I'll give you this piece of information. Actually, I've given Teresa a copy of the one, but I'll give you all of it, and it pertains to every land use committee meeting we've done. It pertains to all resolutions that were done in a legitimate council meeting by councillors and passed by resolutions. So that means we've already changed it, and we already have a really good working one available. We just have to resurrect it and make it happen. And it's fair and more equitable, and what it does is it's going to help facilitate. We're out of lots in Souk, and there's nobody coming forward because the length of time it takes to do a subdivision and the length of time it takes to get anything to happen so far, it's too long. I've been waiting since October, and here it is the end of February, and I still don't have adoption. So I need to get this stuff here facilitated so we can get things moving, because it takes 6 months to a year to get a subdivision happening once you do have one in the works.
Okay. So that was May 13th, 2013 and November 12th, 2013.
Yeah.
Those were the 2 dates?
And I'll give you the copies of this so you can have them for your own record.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Do you have a question, Councillor Casper, for Mr. Haldane?
That's the resolution, and then this is the staff report.
From November 12th. Okay. No, that's great. Thank you very much.
The only thing I'm going to say is that I think it's, if what we've got there is absolutely correct, and I know I was on council at the time, then I think that information has to go to staff immediately, and our website should be upgraded immediately to reflect those changes. And that should be, how we should be operating in accordance, because it is district letterhead, and there's notations on the bottom as to what the meeting was. And you said it was a special council meeting?
That May 13th special council meeting isn't even in our archives.
This was adopted on May the 13th. So the meeting of this, I'm just looking at it right now, was for April 22nd, 2013, adopted on May the 13th. Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I did raise that there are some minutes that are missing from our website.
Yeah,
and the April the 22nd meeting, which Mr. Haldane is speaking to, is not on the district website. I spent 2 hours today looking for the information because I knew we had sat here and discussed a presentation. And part of that, because those minutes are missing, it doesn't show that the April 15th, 2013 land use, when it came to council from that land use meeting, doesn't show as being accepted by this council because it's in that set of minutes that are not on the website. Yeah. So it was just identified here a couple of weeks ago that those minutes were actually missing, and it just so happened that when I was looking today for the amenity stuff, it's in that set of minutes. So
yeah, no, there is a gap. It does go from March 25th. So, thank you for bringing this in. Our staff will take care of it and move forward. There is a desire to have this refreshed, so your delegation is at a perfect time. Okay. And then we hope to see you when we bring this at a committee of the whole or another meeting in the near future. Councillor Pearson.
It's what I've spoke to before. I believed it was already refreshed, is my mind. And I know we're looking for historical things, but again, my recollection of that series of events was, because I was chair of the land use, that we brought it forward to council, and it passed. It carried. That's just my recollection of the way it went.
Well, it's just when you look at this here, though, what passed, let's see. The first part of the motion is that it goes back to staff, and then it was defeated. Okay, and then the rest of this did pass. And then direct staff to provide a proposed revised policy prior to adoption of the policy. So a new policy is not adopted, so it's sitting somewhere. So it was discussed in chambers, and it did move to staff, and it just hasn't come forward.
And if you look at the staff report, the next one, and you look at the first line under the recommended action there, it says that it was adopted by resolution of council. And this was it talks about the implementation of it.
Yeah. We need to research. We'll get it sorted.
Well, and to give you some other history on it too, there's later on in February, following months, there was also talk about changing Bylaw 600. And the problem that we ran into back in the day was that we went from Bylaw 400 to Bylaw 500 to Bylaw 600 because we had to ratify a whole bunch of stuff. So if you remember correct, what happened back, and this goes back to the base densities, we changed all the zonings from outside of the sewer specified area to RU4, which is a 10-acre subdivision.
Mr. Haldane, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we actually need to pass a motion to let you
So
speak
I would move
longer.
that the speaking time be extended.
Yeah, for a further 5 minutes, please, Matt. That's been moved and seconded by Councillor Casper and Councillor Parkinson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you very much. So when we did Bylaw 600, we implemented RU4 in all of the zones outside the sewer specified area. And what that did is it moved the base densities for all those places down Whiff and Spit Road and all the places down the end of Grant Road and outside that weren't in the sewer specified area to a 10-acre zone. Whiff and Spit has all kinds of 1,000 square meter lots. Their base densities are almost consistent with a lot of the lots that are in the town center, in the middle of Souk and our comprehensive development zones. The problem we ran into there was when we started trying to flush out amenities, we started running into problems where somebody would amend or rezone to a 10 or 12 lot subdivision zone, and we'd be expecting them to pay $5,000 a door. There's an application that failed here recently for a client because he had to come up with $80,000 worth of amenity monies, and he just didn't have the money. He's trying to get a subdivision going. The cost of doing these subdivisions, when you take into consideration the sewers, the sidewalks, electrical costs, all the underground servicing, they're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So to come up with an $80,000 chunk of money up front to the district before you can even break ground just doesn't make any sense. And that's why we ratified that policy. That's why we came up with something clear and fair. And if we can implement the new stuff, I think you'll see people might be coming forward. And because of the market in Souk right now, you're going to be having lots of people banging on the door to ask. Then they're going to run in, because they got professionals who are going to look at that stuff and go, whoa, hold it, guys, that this is going to take a lot of time. This is going to cost you a lot of money up front. And I ran into that even with some of the bigger developers there a couple of years ago who were trying to do stuff, and they wanted to trade us services for the amenity rather than trade us money, because they had equipment, they had engineers, and they had people who could do work for us that we needed on some of our projects, roads and servicing and stuff. So anyhow, I appreciate you letting me talk to this.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Haldane. Okay, so we'll move into carry on with our meeting here. No, sorry, just shifting gears here. We're into item number 8, which is our public question and comment period. I'd like to invite any member of the public forward. We just require your name and address for the record, and if you could let us know which item of business you're interested in, and there's 2 minutes allotted for each member of the public in this section. Okay, so call for final time. Seeing none, okay, we'll move on into the agenda, please. Into item 9, we have the Sewer Reserve Fund Bylaw number 661, 2017, and I believe it's just at final adoption by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. There's no new business, so that brings us to the correspondence, and this is items from January the 30th, until February the 21st. There's a few items here. First off, I've been carrying this quilt block along, and I keep forgetting to present it. The Capital Regional District, as part of its 50th anniversary celebrations, engaged local quilters to design a quilt block representing each municipality, First Nation communities, and the electoral areas within the CRD. This is a duplicate block for Souk that's in my office, and it's identical to the one hanging in the CRD boardroom. The quilt there is quite large, and then every municipality has its own block, and there's a small booklet that shows the design. So this one sort of features our boardwalk, of course, Whiff and Spit, and there's a biography of the quilters that were engaged in this process. So I brought it up at the last meeting and forgot about it, which is why I left it here, but there's some details in the correspondence. I believe council has seen the letter in the past from the District of Metchosin regarding the Timuc Treaty Advisory Committees and the funding levels for 2017, so I think that can just move forward to our Director of Finance as we go through the budget deliberations. Are there any other items that council would like to discuss in greater detail? Our CEO has a question or a comment, and then Councillor Peterson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to draw council's attention to the letter from the Sauk Lions Club offering to organize the Santa Parade for next year. I think if we get direction from council that they're supportive of this, I'd like to draft a letter for mayor and council signature, or the mayor's signature, thanking them for their previous help with last year's parade and accepting their generous offer to organize it again this year.
That's moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion on that? Councillor Parkinson? Microphone, please.
I was just curious whether we would be giving them the honorarium again in the same amount, and then that should go into our budget.
To our CAO.
I will look for council direction with respect to the honorarium.
Councillor Pearson?
Through the chair to the CAO, and thanks for bringing this to our attention, and I actually have it up on my screen here. I think that given the success and the numerous comments that we've received throughout the community, and the Lions Club themselves, and the link that they have to our business community as well through the phone book and the business registry and stuff, I think this is an excellent thing for us to continue on with, because again, it puts that planning into perspective, and we're not waiting to the last minute. So I'd like to follow on Councillor Parkinson's idea of that we put it as to a line item, because it's part of that money that I think that we earmarked previously to the Chamber of Commerce, and I don't want to see this getting lost, but I would like to see it become a line item as opposed to a grant. So that way we're planned for it in our budget. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Parkinson?
And that would come under the community grants then, would it? Or just a separate line item?
I think it should be a separate line item or in an events category.
Correct. That'd be a good one.
And I think as we enter into the budget deliberations, we can discuss events in a little more detail. We'll have the numbers for Canada Day. In the past, we did the fireworks for Safe Halloween because they didn't go off on Canada Day. Maybe we want to do something like that. 150, the mayor's levy, whatever else we decide we feel we should look at doing. So I think that's something we can look at for budget time. I think what does staff require at this point in the motion? You're looking for the support to have the Lions engaged, the $5,000 honorarium, and no. Do we need what exactly are you needing in the motion? I guess
Right now, just needing direction from council to draft a letter from the mayor saying thank you very much for your work last year. We are very, agreeable to accepting your offer. The budget discussion with the honorarium doesn't have to be, we don't need a motion for that right now.
Okay, we'll deal with that part then during the budget times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that can sound good for everyone. Okay, I'll call the question then on the letter that's going to go out. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Any other items for council? Councillor Casper.
I know that Terrence Martin had sent us additional information in regard to the matter that he spoke to at a public meeting, and that was about access through that portion of that development, Sun River, down to the park. But what triggered what I'm going to ask staff to look into is the map that he showed, and it is stamped draft, but it shows what I think might be substantially more housing units than what council had previously approved. Because I think when there was the rezoning or the changes to the CD zone on this property, I was under the impression it was a smaller number of units than what shows in this map. So I actually thank Mr. Martin for bringing this forward, but it then pushes another question in my mind. Because, so is it possible for staff to look into that and ask our people in development services, does this comply? The number of proposed small lots in this development comply with what council had approved when they granted the changes to the zoning and the CD zone in Sun River. Is that possible?
Okay, to our CAO.
I'm sorry it's a little long-winded.
Absolutely, we'll look into that.
Okay, Councillor Berger.
Yes, thank you. I had just had a note just further to Councillor Casper's comments. So on the same topic, when Mr. Martin was here and he showed us he had a picture of river access. Excuse me. And forgive me, I forgot to follow up. I was going to email staff the next day. I'm just wondering if we can also get information as to what is the dedicated access that's down there and what that looks like. Just for my own knowledge, I'd like to know how much dedication there is there and what the access actually looks like. So that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think what we need to do with this, because Mr. Martin did come forward in the open mic session beforehand, and that's where this letter has come forward now. So I think it's proper that this item just be referred to the next council meeting. I was looking for when I first saw this query come about, we did receive an email from staff, and it had to do with the incline or the slope, I believe, as to why a vehicular access was not permitted. But there was also discussion on the width, and I'm having trouble finding that. But I think in the spirit of openness, we should just get all this information back. We can have Councillor Casper's question answered, Councillor Berger's query answered, as well as the public's query in regard to that, and we'll just have it at the next council meeting, if we may. Just a brief report, please. Councillor Ray?
Yes, and I guess my thinking of that area that they're looking to have access to is a prime area of the Sauk River for the salmon spawning. So I think that we also should, an element of a report, if we're looking at access in terms of the impact
Yes.
for the salmon spawning. Thank you.
And that may be another reason why. So it'd be good to have that, just so we understand what's happening. Okay. Is there any other items arising out of the materials? Correspondence?
If I may,
Go ahead.
I'm glad it was. I'm glad you sent that letter to the mayor of Quebec in regard to
Yes.
the tragedy that occurred.
Yeah, we sent a card and we did lower our flags in response to that. So we did receive the letter in return. Thank you. The Chamber of Commerce has their banquet coming up, and I think right now is the time to sponsor any local businesses or to nominate local businesses for the awards. I'm planning on attending. Could use a date if anyone's interested. Just saying. I know, silence, thanks. It's typical. All right. Okay, so on that note, we'll have a motion to receive the correspondence. Moved by Councillor Berger, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
I'd say yes, but my wife would be watching.
It's fine. It's okay. I understand. Okay, so now we'll move on to any updates from members of council. Any council reports? Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I've attended the Finance Committee meeting with Crest and a regular board meeting as well, and then also am attending the executive meeting with the Library Board on Thursday.
Other members of council? Councillor Berger.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick update from this month's CPARC meeting. The CPARC board passed installation of an electric vehicle charging station. So how it first came about is the CPARC board received a grant for $495 to do a site assessment grant. And so somebody came out and looked at where on the site it would be viable to have a charging station. There's another $2,000 grant available for the installation. So they're going to apply for that, and one charging station right now will be built. It's going to be wired for an additional station, but they just don't see the need for building two right now. But it'll be wired and done for it should that need arise.
Councillor Casper?
Yeah, last Wednesday I was asked to attend on behalf of the mayor a special regional board meeting which dealt with the regional growth strategy. And as you've probably read in the media, that they're going to be going to a mediation process in regard to that. The stalemate that occurred from all the municipalities not approving and those approving that document. I also attended a meeting on behalf of the mayor in regard to the Health and Housing Committee of the CRD Board. It's a new committee. And one of the things that I managed to convince the members is that instead of just having references under the terms of reference to hospitals, we added the term healthcare facilities, which is pretty all-embracing because there are a number of healthcare providers, and I'm not talking about private medical services. I'm talking about there are services that are publicly funded that don't happen to be located in a hospital, and it was felt that that's important because there probably will be some form of needed housing that could have a medical service attached or in conjunction with it, and I also brought forward the argument that we have to look at more creative ways as to how we can establish housing by also permitting other uses. And if healthcare services are included in that, then, it makes things a lot easier. So, anyway, that's my report.
That's great. Thank you very much. That's okay. Thank you for attending those. I was at UBCM executive meetings. It was the advocacy days for the executive. This happens every year in February where the UBCM meets with MLAs to share sort of the vision and the platform that's come from the Assembly, which is basically all municipalities within BC. One of the successes that came forward last year was infrastructure funding. The federal government, as you may know, it pledged 50% towards funding for local government infrastructure projects. The province then met this with 33%, leaving local governments only needing to come up with the 17%. So that was very successful. In fact, the program was oversubscribed. But rather than going a third, which would be difficult for smaller communities with a smaller tax base like ourselves to achieve, the 17% is more doable. So one push was to see that formula extend into coming years. Not every province has done this, so that's why there's a concern that the federal government may pull back. But with the infrastructure deficit that we have, and certainly the wacky weather that we've had take a toll on our roads, for example, the need to have all levels of government work together is very important. So there were sort of 5 different matters put forward. In addition to infrastructure, there's also looking at finance, and this is to work with local governments to help provide the revenue tools needed so that we don't always have to look at hitting our taxes. One idea that's come out of the UBCM through its Strong Fiscal Futures program is the establishment of a community development bank. This is where municipalities would work with the province to essentially grow the economy and to put funds aside for future days that could be accessed when the economy turns downward, and this would keep local shovels in the ground and to keep everyone busy. There's also work in terms of reducing cost pressures with protective services. With climate action, it's been voluntary participation from local governments, but over 99% of all communities have signed on to the Climate Action Charter, and over 50% now are carbon neutral. So there was a push to still have this as a voluntary movement by local governments so that we can take on projects as we can within our abilities and not have a push. And then also to deal with the housing challenges and to see more delivery of funded programs for supportive housing in particular and for purpose-built rentals. So everyone was divided up over 3 days. We met with Minister Fassbender. He's our direct link to the provincial government, so he attends every UBCM meetings, which we're very grateful for. And then we met with MLAs in groups of 3 with staff support over the days, and then that finished up with the actual board meeting. All of the Horizon reports come out of the Compass, so when I see some of that drift out, I'll share more of the highlights where it pertains to our community in particular. But this did give me a really good insight into how we should look at planning and meeting with our MLAs come this September at UBCM. Both our CAO and have talked about this briefly. In the past, I've just seen us enter in a bit scattered. And when you're in line with every other municipality trying to get the attention of a minister, you need to have a coordinated approach. The briefing documents have to be well prepared in advance, highlight sheets perhaps distributed on the day, and to have a really organized attack, I suppose, would be the best way. So I'd like to see us work on that and streamline a bit. Already I feel there is a need to meet with the Minister of Health. We know that Minister Lake is retiring, so there will be a new minister regardless of which government steps in, which party takes government. I believe that's a priority, as well as the Land Commission, which isn't part of the, it's not an MLA, but we do have matters coming forward regarding farm use and the like, which I think is a priority for us. And of course, always the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure is someone high on our list. So it's something to start thinking about. There is deadlines that start to creep in where we want to have our documents prepared. So it's something that I'm prepared to work on with the assistance of anyone else that's interested, but I do think it's important. And if there's other matters that you feel are also important, I think it's timely that we share. We do this in advance, so we're not rushing at the last minute, and then we can share sort of a strategy. It's busy at UBCM because there's always 3 things happening at each moment in time, so this way, if we divide and conquer, I think we'll see really good results coming out in the future. Councillor Ray?
Just to follow up, Your Worship, so at UBCM, can you book time with the Agricultural Land Commission?
Yes.
Do they sit there?
Yes.
I think given the current situation in Souk and some of the issues that have come before us over the last couple of years, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get on that list as well.
Absolutely. So yes, you can book time, and we know that the chair has changed, so it is timely. I think we haven't met with the ALC in a number of years. I don't think it was Vancouver, so we're going back to 2013, maybe even. I remember it was Councillor Berger and former Councillor Haldane that met. I'm sure it was in Vancouver, and the LC has changed since then, so it's timely that we do that. So food for thought anyway. And then the CAO and I traveled out to Port Renfrew to meet with other mayors along the Circle route, including Director Hicks. A consortium of mayors along the route has been formed in the past, and they kind of met and didn't really have much momentum, so it was timely to do that, just to talk about how we can promote the Circle route and the best way to move forward in doing so. So that was a very productive conversation, I think, and there is some forward momentum happening, spearheaded out of Port Renfrew and Couch, and so a lot of our efforts are already underway by way of the museum and the visitor center, so it's just tying that connection into the rest of the route. So it was good to reestablish those connections, though, because we are part of that circle. And that's really all I have at this moment. There was also a very lengthy conversation about the marijuana dispensaries. I know the federal government had said that I think April was their date. There was draft legislation in place, but it's stuck now. From what I understand, the federal government is looking at the supply, and the provincial governments will oversee how it's actually distributed. Not every province, though, is buying into this in the same way. Everyone's different in how they handle it. We see that with alcohol. Every province handles the substance differently. As I understand it, the federal government wants to see a safe, secure supply that's affordable so that anyone choosing to use it recreationally or medicinally would not obtain it from organized crime, but to buy it from a legal outlet. So then the argument is, because local government through UBCM has said, okay, well, when this happens, we need to see some of the profits flow into our community, because what pieces are we then going to have to pick up? So they're saying if it's that cheap, there may not be profits to go around. And then the province is saying, well, where's the oversight? And then for ourselves, it's like, well, who's going to do this? Does this mean it falls under the RCMP? Is it our policing that we need to now add this to? Is it health inspectors? Is it our bylaw enforcement? Is it our building inspectors? Where does this fall? So this is all still being worked out, and there's no clarity. Every municipality is handling it differently, as you can see as the headlines. I don't think April is an achievable date. But it seems the legislation was formed, and then the task force did their work. Their findings is all a public document now that you can read through. An interesting one that was in there was that anyone with a license from Health Canada to have it for personal use for medical reasons could then grow 4 plants in their yard, but only to a maximum height of 100 centimeters. So the question is, well, who oversees this? If it's 110, like who comes and chops the top 10 centimeters? Different plants grow in different ways, supposedly. So that's one of those things. Will we have neighbors spying on neighbors? Like who do you call then if there's a 5th plant or they're too tall? I'm not sure. So those pieces are still being worked out, and there'll be more to come. But unfortunately, local government is always the last person on the to-call list, and that's where I'm grateful for the work that's being done by UBCM, because it's like, okay, you need to remember to call us if you're going to then download and dump this onto our communities. We need to be at the table. We need to understand what's going on. We need to see how this is going to roll out, if there's an expectation that's going to fall back. So there is a strong push to keep it at the federal and provincial level. So see what happens in time to come. So on that note, we will move on. Anything from we have our CEO report and an update on the budget process, please.
CIO report will be an update on the budget. We're late this year in getting the budget in front of Mayor and Council. And the reason for that is I've been doing a lot of research on historical trends in our community with respect to the effects of 13.7% growth over 5 years and our ability to continue to deliver the services that we're delivering and maybe and improve those services. I can tell you that the charts and graphs I'll be putting in front of Mayor and Council on the 6th of March are quite compelling. So we do have a series of budget meetings set up for March. I'm hoping we don't have to use all of them. I think we passed our budget last year in 3 meetings or 4, so we're going to try to be as efficient and effective as we can as we move through this process. Moving into next year, though, it is my goal, and I've talked to the Director of Finance about this, is to have budget locked and loaded and approved by Council by December 31st, so that we move into the new year and we set a new accountability with ourselves, in that as we start the new year, we already have the authority we need to actually move business forward. It's not that we're not moving business forward, but we are having to come in front of Mayor and Council with every single amendment to a budget, and that's not a desirable state of doing business. So moving forward 2018 and every single year thereafter, we can get that budget done much, much earlier. And I want to thank Council for their patience as we do move through this. I think it's really important for Mayor and Council and our public to have full information about those trends before making budget decisions. So please be patient with us. We'll fix this for next year.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Okay, so we'll move on to, we have a report of released in-camera resolutions from February the 14th. There are 2. Lot A appraisal was released. That came from November 19th of 2013, and also from myself and staff to work with the Sauk West Shore Health Action Team, South Island Division of Family Practice, local physicians, and others as needed to look at the feasibility of creating a primary care home. And then that's it. So we'll just look for a motion then to close the meeting to the public, subject to Section 91C, I, L, and K of the Community Charter as it pertains to labor, legal, and negotiations, please. On that note, a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Ray, or I think a motion for in camera by Councillor Ray and Councillor Berger. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.